Today, I will talk about polyolefin. Polyolefin is the backbone of the petrochemical industry. As a consumer, we use it every day as a grocery bag, as a toy, as a many stuff. As we all understand, this industry is in a trough. Because of that, many people think the industry in a very shaky shape. But on the other hand, from the long-term perspective, this industry have a bright demand. They have a strong fundamental. First is the global population growth. More and more people will need more plastic for hygiene, for communication, for entertainment. And second, we see the urbanization. More people move to the city. We need the infrastructure to support their life standard. And also three, we see this industry provide a good benefit even from the environmental perspective, reduce the carbon emission compared to the alternative material. So because of that, we foresee the polyolefin demand will continue to grow. We will not see any demand peak in terms of polymer. Of course, we are facing a challenge in the supply side. Because of energy transition, many major oil and then petrochemical companies, they invest heavily in polymer production, and which caused the supply surplus. So, because of the recent overinvestment in capacity, we see the margin has been eroded, the operating rate has come down. This is like a typical cycle in the commodity business. We foresee in the coming years, more and more high-cost region and the producer had to take very painful action to close their high-cost, less efficient plants in order to sustain the business. So, because of that, we see the industry eventually will rebound. Of course, this down cycle is much longer than any cycle before. But by the end of this decade, we will still see the operating rate will rebound and then be a really healthy condition, assuming that no aggressive investment from like Middle East, China, US. Okay, and what changed the landscape of a polyolefin in the past 5 years? Of course, you cannot ignore the big elephant, that's China. China leveraged their high efficient project execution, the low capex advantage. So they built capacity to fulfill their self-sufficient requirement. But on the other hand, because the economy slowed down in China, their plastic demand grew slower than expected. This caused a surplus in China. Traditionally, China is a big net importer of a polymer, like a polyethylene and a polypropylene. But because of overinvestment in the capacity, now China starts to export significant volume of a polypropylene. Although this volume may not be big from their their capacity perspective, but don't forget China is still the biggest net importer just 5 years ago. So because of the local supply, the net import volume become very small. This causes a big issue for the company which target the export to China in the past. And in the market today, we see Chinese producer, they leverage the Belt and Road facility. They export their volume of the polypropylene to many destinations, which is geographically very far from China, like Latin America, like Africa. Of course, don't even mention the Southeast Asia. So we foresee Chinese export will bring intensive competition in many emerging markets, which have a lack of capacity, which rely on the import material. So in short, China will continue to shape the petroolefin industry by export the volume, by bring down the price down, and by make the industry more efficient. So that's how we can see the polypropylene industry in the era of the energy transition and then the trade realignment.